system of electronic cards and a computerized accountability. And now, but that still is a system where somebody is looking at a photograph in the system and comparing it to the face of the person that's appearing before them. So the next step, and what's quite exciting now, is the new technology of biometrics that are being brought into the fold. So, Rob, can you talk a little bit first? Give us some background on what biometric technology is and how it's used to identify people.
Sure, I'll be glad to. So, a credential is one of three things. It's something you have, like a card that Anthony held in his hand, something you know, like a PIN number that you put into a device, or something you are. And the something you are, your face or your fingerprints or your iris or your ear measurements, is a biometric. Biometrics have an advantage because you can't lose them. They're very difficult to counterfeit, and they're far more valuable today than they were 10 years or so ago. When electronic credentials were first considered for access control, they were pretty basic. They were magnetic stripes or other easily counterfeitable technologies. And so the face recognition and biometrics industry described biometrics as, I don't know, the Swiss Army knife of access control. The trouble is that they weren't. They were in their nascent stage. They were very early, and only in the last probably 5 to 2 years have become reliable enough that you can actually get rid of the card and start using either contactless fingerprint or contactless face on the fly.
So actually we've got a couple of videos that show some of the technologies that Rob's company's been experimenting with for biometric access to ships. So let's see if we can make that work here. Turn down the volume. Of the presentation. Of this, the music. Can you turn that down? Okay. I was hoping we could mute the music, folks, so Rob could kind of talk us through this.
Well, believe me, I'm not bashful. I could talk right through this. So what you're seeing is a contactless fingerprint scanning device that provides access control in sub-seconds. As people are traveling into high security facilities, Fannie Mae has 9,000 employees that use these devices every time they come into their facility every day. Bank of America has 35 or 36 of them at their headquarters in Bryant Park in New York for high security areas. They're enormously valuable for high throughput situations where you need to move people through and don't want to have them put their fingers or hands down on any sort of a surface or platinum. They use it in food service at the University of Maryland, the college where college students sometimes try and get more than one meal. Imagine that. So they now use the MorphoWave to scan people into the dining hall, and then they're prevented from getting another meal within a certain period of time. So it's got dozens of use cases that are valuable as a biometric enabler of access control and even time and attendance.
So that's one example, that's fingerprints, and I think we have one more video that we can talk about here.
So using the same sort of algorithms that accurately recognize fingerprints, we're using devices that will capture a face. And as the person walks up to the kiosk, their expression is neutralized, their face is turned correctly, and we create a 3D mesh version of their face that's then matched against the photograph that has been imported into the system when they've registered to come on the cruise or boarded. And in Singapore, at Terminal number 4, the most advanced air terminal in the world, you'll drop your bags at the counter, present your passport, have your picture taken, and then put your papers away, because you'll no longer need to be identified with a document. You'll be identified with your face through immigration, through customs and exit, and finally onto the aircraft. It's an amazing use of this technology, and I think it's only going to get more ubiquitous in terms of how it's used.
So, and I guess this is a question that I could direct to both you and Anthony, Rob, but can you talk a little bit about how you see biometric access control being implemented on cruise ships, and what kind of timeline are we talking about here before people might be able to have a situation where they're going to have a cruise card-free experience?
Well, the card manufacturers might not be very happy with my answer, but it's sooner than you think. We've gone in hotels now from locks that you drop a magnetic stripe into to locks where you simply hold the card near the lock, and ultimately we'll wind up going to locks that can be accessed by a single fingerprint or by the wave of a hand for greater accuracy. And I think that that's coming, and coming soon. Several professional sports organizations use our access control technology using fingerprints for the players, because when a player goes out on the practice field, he doesn't want to carry a card to get him back into the secure locker room. And believe me, with the kind of jewelry that these guys wear, they need to keep that place locked up. And so they're using the MorphoWave device to allow the authorized staff and the players access to the locker room when they come back in from game time, or actually from their routine practices.
Yeah, I see that the cruise industry will be implementing this probably within the next 5 years. The reason is that it'll be a seamless experience for the guest. And that's one of the real paramount things that they're looking at from a convenience point of view, is guests will not have to carry a card with them. You won't have to access. You'll access your room via biometrics. You'll go to the entertainment. You'll go to the bar. You'll order drinks, food, etc. You'll go excursions and so on, and you don't have to worry about that card. That's a big problem, especially with children carrying cards and so on and so forth. So you're going to see a lot of that starting to happen in the next few years. There'll be some pilots going out, and we're working together with Morpho and integrating the process, both the fingerprint and the facial technologies, into what we're doing, so that basically somebody will come up and it'll read you, and away you go. You're good to go. You don't have to pull a card. You don't have to have any media on the card. You might have a card for identification purposes at some other point, maybe when you go out to shore and you want to get in where they don't have biometrics available. So we may have a combination of the two. So the card will totally go away.
No.
See? So we'll keep whoever's out in the card business out there. You're okay. So. But for the most part, you're going to start to see the implementation of this technology integrated into a lot of solutions. And it goes across the board. It's not just security, it's safety, it's convenience, it's hotel, it's management, it's a whole slew of applications for this technology. Identifying your child, okay, that's a big one. Okay, who belongs to this child? The kid, got it, all of a sudden pops up on the screen, you got the name, cabin number, who the parents are, where to go, and so on. We're seeing that in other areas too, in the commercial industry outside of the marine. We do a lot of hospitals and schools, and then we'll see that going to be implemented as well. As return customers come in, they're recognized, they're greeted for the second time without having to do anything. Say, hello, Mr. Zagami, how are you today? Welcome to our bank, that type of thing. So look for this in the future. It's going to be a big part of our technology influx into the society side of it. It was only temporarily used in the government circuits before, because it was a slow process. You had to go multiple times, go back into it again, and it would error a lot. The technology's gotten so good now that it's ready for prime time consumption by the total population. So we'll see that happen.
So I definitely want to come back to the topic of biometrics and how they have a potential to enhance the cruise experience and also increase security as well. But I'd like to, at this point, bring Mark into the conversation. So, up to this point, we've been kind of discussing how do you know who's on the ship or who's off the ship. But now there are technologies where we can actually find out where a person is on the ship or where they might even be ashore. So, Mark, can you talk a little bit about some of the technologies that are available to identify where somebody is located geographically and how they might be employed both on a ship and off a ship?
Right, so location is probably becoming the fourth dimension of what we've talked about from a third factor perspective, right? You've got the who you are, what you're carrying, and what you know, but what about where you're located? And that's a key element from a cruise ship perspective. If you think about the passengers are moving about, you want them to have a good time, you want them to free flow throughout, but there's all these opportunities and restrictions that you want to apply to guest services, both for safety and security and other pieces. So GPS is probably the most widely known and well respected. It's incredibly accurate, but of course you've got to have line of sight, and so there are limitations associated to GPS once you get inside the cabin and other areas. So for that reason, RFID came about, and it's been a preferred method for probably decades now in its existence, right? There's an attempt to utilize low frequency versus high frequency so that you can track portals or checkpoints, but that gets to more of a passive technology. Active technologies are now entering the space where the devices themselves are either enabled through a smartphone technology or something that's wearable or implantable into your wear, maybe a tag that you carry or an access card even that you have. I mean, the limitations are almost endless from the profile and stand of it. And now you're capable of being able to get to compartmentalization or identifying areas of the ship. And then, of course, there's other assistive technologies like IR and even ultrasound that can get you to a level of granularity where you're capable of actually measuring inches or centimeters, and then even being able to look at three-dimensional aspects, whether it's low, medium, or high within a room. I mean, it's really fascinating where the technologies have come in recent years.
So, Mark, I think we've got a couple of slides here also. So you talked a little bit about, sort of knowing where somebody's located on a ship.
Right.
Where the ship has a fixed structure and various sensors could be fixed around the ship but ashore, you might wonder how could you know where people are there. So maybe we'll show a couple of your slides here and you can kind of talk us through this project you've been working on.
Yeah, so this is actually our PaxTrack application, and what's really unique about this is we're capable of providing real-time location off the ship, beyond the confines of the ship. And as you mentioned, it's very controlled within the ship. You have the capability to deploy your infrastructure where and how you'd like to. Once they're off the ship and beyond a pier, you lose some of that capability. But we were actually able to leverage smart devices through excursion operators here, and you can actually see where in real time we were able to actually track the excursions anywhere throughout the area. Now this is an example of the Miami area since we're local to that, but if you look at even the far extent of it, we're out into the Everglades where there's very little, if any, communication back, and we were able to articulate real-time location of where that excursion and those passengers were at all time. And when you think about the safety and security aspect of it in the world we live in today, you start to go overseas, having real-time location and probability of where your passengers are from a safety and security standpoint, being able to recall them, muster them, or have that transparency is incredibly valuable.
So, for example, if there was an area where there was civil unrest and a tour operator had buses, and there was the route was going to be blocked by protesters or something like this, with this kind of technology, at a glance, they're able to see exactly where all the buses are, what routes are open, and redirect folks to keep them away. So there's just one example of how that would...
Yeah, there's two real aspects of that. First of all, we're able to get the real-time location information coming into us and identify those locations. And then, utilizing communication capabilities, we're able to enunciate alternative routes for them to be able to avoid those types of instances. I mean, just getting them back to the ship in a timely manner can be cumbersome enough, but adding the environment that many of these ports are going through, this is invaluable information. The other thing is we have the capability to provide geofencing. So in real time, we're able to identify when somebody may be going off track. You know, where are they? What were their planned routes? And if they vary from that, you'd want to know that right away so that you can accommodate or address the situation however you should.
So that's fantastic. Can you talk a little? So what's the accuracy of these tracking systems? And as you know, cruise ships go all over the world. So is this technology developed? Can you see where something where a bus might be if it's heading out to a location that's very, very remote from the ship? Where maybe you don't even have a cell signal or anything like that.
Yeah, most of the GPS devices now are embedded into the device themselves. So they've actually got the chip capability to provide and relay that information. If you look to the slide to the left, there's actually the coordinates that were associated when I sent a test message out from the Everglades. And that can correlate to the location on the map in real time. So at any point in time, you're capable of even being remote. One of the key elements we built into the application was the ability to cache credentials and location through its duration as well. So even if connectivity or signal is missed or lost, it can be reinstated and all of that information is uploaded in a timely manner.
That's great. We got a couple other slides here. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to note about these other...
Yeah, I think we enabled the capability for duress signaling. A driver's out and in many instances, maybe you don't have the visibility that you're looking for. Social networks are amazing for being able to identify when riots or other things are occurring. But in real time, you're actually able to provide feedback en route of what's going on. So you can actually start to create that profile and have that information and then redirect your bus, that bus, or either subsequent buses in real time. So the duress function is really, really interesting in the application itself.